The council had not spoken the word Earth aloud in over a century. Even now, in the grand chamber of Kareth Prime, where banners of 100 civilizations fluttered in the filtered starlight, the name lingered like poison. The Chancellor of the Galactic Concord, a translucent being of crystalline veins named Vorlak, spoke the words as though tasting ash. They were human. The assembly stirred, shifting wings, grinding mandibles, the rustle of scaled hides. Fear still lived here, even generations after the expulsion. The last time humans had stood in this hall, the stars burned. The Concord had judged them a threat not because they sought conquest, but because they refused to kneel. On Gares 4, a single human battalion had fought an entire armada to a standstill for 9 days. On Etrin Prime, they detonated a sun to stop an enemy swarm. When the wars finally ended, the Concord declared that no species so reckless, so willing to die for victory, could coexist with the galaxy's fragile order. And so Earth was erased from the records, sealed behind quarantine fleets, its people left to fade in isolation. But now, the galaxy was bleeding. It started on the outer rim, with whispers of black ships appearing in dead space. No signals, no ident codes. They struck mining worlds and colonies alike, leaving nothing but silence behind. Then came the first survivor broadcast, static and terror, and a single word spoken in 50 alien tongues. Harvesters. Entire systems fell in days. The council convened again, desperate, proud, and terrified. Fleets were sent, none returned. And in the depths of despair, someone spoke the forbidden name again. Humanity. They will not come, one delegate hissed. We cast them out. They owe us nothing. But they are the only ones who ever fought like this, another countered. The harvesters consume fear. They thrive on hesitation. Humans? The voice faltered, trembling with reluctant awe. Humans have none. And so a decision was made in the shadows. A fleet of envoys departed under stealth drive, heading toward the dead zone once called Sol. None expected to return. Admiral Rhea Cade watched the blackness of space ripple as the old Concord vessel dropped from slipstream. The stars here felt colder, sharper. Ahead, a vast sphere of debris and radiation marked the quarantine perimeter, once maintained by drone sentries, now derelict. Her crew, mostly young officers from species that had never even seen a human, shifted uneasily, scans reading. "Nothing, ma'am," said her comms officer, a pale blue Ethesian whose gills fluttered nervously. "No transmissions, no power signatures." "Then they're still out there," Rhea murmured. "Humans never go dark unless they want to be." They advanced slowly, the ship's hull groaning against waves of ancient radiation. The records had said Earth was bombed into cinder after their exile, that humanity had turned on itself and vanished. But Rhea had her doubts. Deathworlders didn't go quietly. The stars parted. There, hanging in the void, was a shadow. At first she thought it a moon, but as the ship drew closer, she saw the truth. It was a station, gigantic. Its outer plating was scorched and dented but intact. No lights, no beacons, yet every instinct screamed alive. "Transmit the council's plea," Rhea ordered. Her voice barely held steady. "Let's see if ghosts answer." The transmission pulsed through the dark, vanishing into the static of forgotten centuries. For a long time nothing happened. Then one by one the lights awoke. Lines of fire traced the station's surface, flaring in patterns not seen since the age of the Great Wars. The bridge crew froze as a voice broke through the silence. Grainy. "Human. Cold. This is Fortress Sol. Identify yourself." Rhea's breath caught. The stories were true. "This is Admiral Rhea Cade representing the Galactic Concord. You come with fear," the voice cut in. "And now you come with need." The screen flared to life, revealing a face unlike any the young officers had seen before. A human man, his skin lined and scarred, eyes like carved iron. Behind him, soldiers in battered armor moved with silent precision. "The Council declared us too dangerous," he said. "You were right." He leaned forward, the light catching the edge of his jaw. "So tell me, Admiral, What danger do you need us to fight? The briefing took place in silence, the kind that felt heavier than gravity. Rhea explained the harvesters, their unknown origin, their fleet of living ships, the collapse of entire sectors. The human commander, who introduced himself as General Mason Hale, listened without interruption. Only when she finished did he speak. "You want soldiers," he said. "But soldiers bleed. Soldiers die. You don't need soldiers." He gestured toward a hollow map of the rim worlds. "You need predators," Rhea frowned. "Predators?" Mason turned to one of his aides, who tapped a command into a console. A new projection appeared, an image of vast creatures, part machine, part flesh, tearing through enemy formations with terrifying efficiency. "The harvesters aren't new to us," Mason said quietly. "They came once before, long ago, before the quarantine. They thought Earth was easy prey. They learned differently." The hollow flickered, showing old footage. Grainy images of human marines in black armor, fighting side by side with beasts that defied logic. Metallic wolves, burning drones shaped like hawks, ground tanks that moved as if alive. "We call them Aegis units," Mason continued. "Biomechanical hybrids, forged from Earth's apex predators. Lions, wolves, sharks, eagles. We designed them to think, to adapt, to hunt." Rhea stared in disbelief. "You made weapons out of your own wildlife?" "No," Mason said, his voice like stone. "We made sure nature would never fight alone again." Silence. Then, almost reverently, Rhea whispered, "And now?" "Now," Mason said. "They're hungry." The next day, Rhea's ship followed the humans through the quarantine barrier, deeper into the Sol system. What she saw defied every law of galactic science. Earth was alive. Not a dead rock, but a fortress world wrapped in orbital rings, defense grids, and glowing blue scars across its oceans. Massive carriers, jagged and predatory, drifted in orbit like sharks circling a wounded sea. The human fleet was unlike anything the Concord had ever seen. Every ship bore scars of centuries, but their weapons pulsed with energy far beyond Council tech. Machines built not for peacekeeping, but for survival. "Status of the Concord fleet?" Mason asked without looking up. "Destroyed or scattered," Rhea admitted. "Our worlds are falling faster than we can respond." "Then it's already too late for mercy," he said, "but not too late for vengeance." The humans began to mobilize. Massive bays opened, releasing thousands of Aegis units that glided silently into formation. Some resembled birds of prey, their metallic wings glinting with plasma edges. Others were ground assault transports that moved like predatory beasts. Rhea realized with a chill that every design, every weapon, mimicked the most efficient killers of Earth's past. "We'll deploy at the rim," Mason said. "Strike fast, no quarter. The harvesters won't understand fear, but they'll learn what it means to be hunted." "And the council?" Rhea asked. "What do I tell them?" Mason paused, then gave a grim smile. "Tell them the beasts of Earth are coming." As the combined fleet prepared to depart, Rhea stood at the viewport, watching the dark side of Earth shimmer under the light of war. She'd seen countless planets in her service, but none like this. It was alive in a way no world should be. You could feel its pulse, its waiting breath. Mason joined her silently. For a long moment, neither spoke. "Why help us?" Rhea asked finally. "After everything we did to you?" He looked out toward the stars. "Because we remember what it was like to be alone," he said softly. "Because no one deserves to face extinction alone. And because—" He turned to her, eyes burning with a quiet fury. "Because humans don't forget what it means to fight for home, even when it isn't ours." The ships began to move, engines igniting like blue suns. The void trembled. The predators of Earth were going hunting once more, and somewhere across the stars, the harvesters would soon learn that the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy were not the ones with claws or fangs, but the ones who built them. The dread was palpable as the human fleet surged into the darkness. Beyond the quarantine perimeter, thousands of ships, black as space itself, engines burning with pale cobalt fire, moved in formation under the command of Admiral Rhea Cade and General Mason Hale. Their target, the outer rim world of Kovray, a fragile mining colony now ravaged by the silent menace called the Harvesters. The Council's pleas had brought them here, but the beasts of Earth did not fight for goodwill or rescue. They fought as predators defending their own. The Harvesters struck without warning. Their ships emerged from void rifts like malignant stars, armor shimmering with bioorganics, tendrils of dark energy trailing behind them. At first glance, their formation seemed chaotic, fractal clouds expanding without shape. But the predators knew how to read the pattern. Mason hovered over the tactical map on the Fortress Sol command bridge. "They're testing us," he said. "Expendable hives probing our line," Rhea nodded. "We give them exactly what they expect." The human fleet opened their assault with a volley of orbital cannons, tungsten rods plunging through clouds of ionized gas, detonating above the colony's surface. The Harvesters responded with living warships that vomited forth swarms of larvae, missiles that dissolved metal, and psychic pulses that shattered sensors. Panic bloomed among the Council's vessels as shields collapsed, systems burned, and ship after ship drifted into silence. But the Earth fleet held, not with massive warships and diplomatic fleets, but with the Aegis units. From carriers descended creatures ripped from the wilds of Earth. Titanic wolves clad in powered armor, raptors with wings of carbon composite gliding on invisible currents, trenchmechs crawling like giant beasts across atmosphere. Below, the war on Kovray was no longer lines of infantry and retro weaponry. It was hunting season. On the surface, the colony hung in the balance. Mining towers, broken and smoking, stood like ruined skeletons under twin suns. Corrupted machinery littered the fields. Human soldiers disembarked, rifles raised, beasts at their side. The Harvesters landed drop pods of their own. Acidic exosuits, clawed augments, screaming engines. The air filled with thunder and screams. Captain Linnea Zhao, leading the 3rd Drop Regiment, counted her men. Behind her, steel-jawed wolves growled softly. Raptors shrieked overhead. She keyed her comm. "Positions locked. The beasts are forward. The world is ours to reclaim." In the next moment, the howl echoed across the battlefield. The Earth call. The beasts surged. The Harvesters' tide broke like a storm against the human line. Yet the humans did not retreat. They didn't even halt. The wolves darted between enemy ranks, dragging out exoskeletons and tearing weapon benches with jaws of reinforced alloy. Raptors dove from the skies, severing the parasite ship's sensor arrays with blade-like talons. The humans advanced, firing without pause, the ground a mosaic of shattered metal and spilled blood. Back at the command ship, Rhea watched the feed. "They declared us too dangerous once," she murmured. "Let them see why." The survivors of the Council watched her in horror as the human fleet methodically dismantled the Harvester advance. Ships ignited, hulls ruptured, plasma storms spun outward from the impact with twisted beauty. In the midst of the chaos, Mason Hale moved among the regiments like a ghost. His exo-armor bore centuries of campaigns, each dent a memory of survival. He transmitted discreetly to Rhea. "Surface Operation 5 complete. They are routing. We push to their hive nodes now." "Understood," Rhea responded. "Prepare Phase 2. Hunt the hive." Their target emerged on the tactical display, a massive organic spire rising from the mining world's core, breaching through stone and steel alike. The node pulsed with bioenergy, shimmering with larvae, outgoing fleets, and psychic lash tendrils. Without that node, the Harvesters would have no anchor here. With it, their invasion could become permanent. The Earth fleet descended again. This time the assault was surgical. Drones zoomed ahead, mapping energy signatures. Strike pods pierced the atmosphere. The beasts of Earth did not shoot. They ambushed. Wolf mechs were dropped into subterranean tunnels. Raptors glided silently into caverns lit by bioluminescence. Human squads moved in behind them. The Harvesters responded with the fury of being hunted. They had never dealt with this. They did not know how. The node's defenses sprang to life. Biocannons, shield tendrils, clusters of drones, yet each met an equal and opposite reaction. A wolf mech detonated its core, sending shockwaves up the cavern's structure. A raptor ripped into the core's shield generator, its payload burning in chains of fire. Human squads breached, detonated, and cleared the chamber in minutes. The node collapsed in a roar that shook the world's crust. Above, the human fleet engaged the retreating harvester ships. Their tactics shifted fluidly. No longer simply gunships, Earth carriers maneuvered like fighting packs. Individual ships peeled off to hunt weaker elements. Ria's voice cut across comms. "We're predators now. Hunt every vessel. Let none escape." As the harvesters' ships were scattered, convulsing under the assault, the Council's ships fled. They'd made a pact with the predators, but had they understood what they brought into the galaxy? The Earth fleet landed on deck, black ships locking into orbit, deployment ramps lowering. The Council envoys boarded with shaking limbs, trying to speak of alliances, reparations, deliverance. They found humans offering none of that. Instead, they found wolves slinking across carrier decks, raptors perched on railings, their eyes gleaming with austere intelligence. General Mason Hale addressed the gathering. His voice echoed in the hold. "You asked for soldiers. We arrived as beasts. Don't expect mercy. Expect survival." The silence that followed was heavier than any cannon stomp. In every star system, the survivors of the harvesters learned the same lesson. When the wolves of Earth hunt, the prey ends in one hellfire blur. The Council realized too late that they had called upon an ancient power, forged in the furnace of a world that didn't tolerate weakness. They had asked for soldiers but received monsters. In the void beyond Kovre, the human fleet turned away. Their mission wasn't complete, but their message was clear. The galaxy had declared humanity too dangerous. Now the galaxy begged for help. And the beasts of Earth answered, not with words, with war. The galaxy burned. After the victory at Kovre, the Council believed the tide had turned. They sent out transmissions of gratitude and renewed allegiance, hailing the humans as saviors. But to the predators of Earth, there were no saviors, only survivors. The harvesters had not retreated. They had merely bled, and predators knew that wounded prey was always the most dangerous. The Sol fleet regrouped at the edge of the rim, where the wreckage of the Council's failed armadas drifted like tombstones. General Mason Hale stood aboard Fortress Sol's bridge, his face lit by the glow of thousands of red tactical icons. Every one of those markers was a dead world. Some still pulsed faintly, signals fading like last heartbeats. "We'll need to strike deep this time," Ria Cade said quietly beside him. "If we stay reactive, they'll regroup faster than we can respond." Mason's eyes didn't leave the map. "We don't respond. We hunt." He keyed the tactical interface, pulling the feed outward. The map expanded until it revealed the Harvester region. Thousands of systems consumed, the borders rippling with psychic energy. At the center of it all lay a singular mass, pulsing faintly with light. "That's their heart," Mason said. "The hive core. We don't take it, we end it." The younger officers on deck shifted uneasily. It was madness, a strike into enemy territory, far beyond any known safe route. The Council's fleets had tried it before and vanished. But Mason Hale wasn't Council. He was human. He gave the order. Within hours, the Sol fleet was on the move again. Hundreds of ships and tens of thousands of hybrid war beasts slipping into the void. Their engines glowed like the eyes of wolves in a dark forest. No fanfare, no speeches, just the quiet hum of machines built to kill. The journey took weeks through slipspace corridors so unstable even navigators feared them. The harvesters had corrupted the paths, filling them with spatial anomalies that shredded unwary vessels. But human engineering had evolved differently. They had long ago learned to thrive in chaos. At the core of each ship was an AI, merged with human instinct, trained in the unpredictability of Earth's own atmosphere and tectonic violence. Where other fleets relied on precision, humans relied on adaptation. Ria watched as the fleet slipped between rift storms that could have erased them. "We don't control the chaos," Mason said half to himself. "We just ride it better than anyone else." On the 12th day, the sensors caught the first sign of the hive core's defense perimeter. The space ahead shimmered with movement. Millions of harvester constructs drifting in formation, connected by filaments of living matter that pulsed like veins. At the center of it all was something vast, a living planet. It wasn't rock or metal, but organic, a pulsating sphere of biomass and consciousness, exhaling clouds of spores into the void. The hive core. It was alive. Contact, the sensor officer whispered. Multiple vectors. They're coming! Mason leaned forward. Let them. The harvesters struck like a tidal wave. Massive bioships that fired beams of acid and plasma, swarming drones that latched onto hulls and burrowed in like parasites. But the Sol fleet didn't falter. Every ship reacted like part of one organism. Carriers spun to release raptor drones that darted through the swarm, slicing through enemy tendrils. Wolf mechs launched from bays, their claws igniting as they tore into enemy hulls. Rhea watched as the battle unfolded, awe mixing with horror. "This isn't war," she said softly. "It's nature unleashed." Mason didn't reply. He was already watching the readings. "They're adapting," he muttered. "They're learning us faster than expected." The hive responded with terrifying speed. Its outer tendrils began to shift shape, forming spiked fortresses that spat energy bolts. The human ships countered by splitting formation. Packs of 3 and 4 broke off, coordinating without words. Each pack leader was a veteran. Their instincts meshed with the fleet's AI systems. They didn't retreat. They attacked the enemy like wolves worrying a larger beast, darting in and out, hitting vital points before pulling back. It was savage and beautiful, and in minutes the formation of the harvesters began to fray. Then the hive screamed. It wasn't sound, but a psychic pulse that ripped through space and mind alike. Officers cried out, clutching their heads. Several alien crew members collapsed, blood pouring from their ears. The human crew gritted their teeth, their neural dampeners crackling. Mason's vision blurred. Through the haze he saw the hive begin to glow from within, forming something new, a colossal construct unlike anything seen before. Energy spike. Impossible levels. Rhea shouted, "Brace!" Mason roared. The blast hit like a supernova. Dozens of ships were erased instantly. Hulls vaporized. Shields failed. Rhea was thrown from her console as the Fortress Sol spun violently. Sirens wailed. For the first time in generations, the humans bled. "Status," Mason barked, coughing smoke. "We've lost the right flank. Carriers Nomad and Helios destroyed. Aegis units offline across sectors 4 and 5. Mason steadied himself. His voice was iron. "Rally the packs. We're not done yet." He keyed into the fleet-wide channel, his voice echoing through the void. "All units, this is General Hale. You wanted to know why they called us dangerous. Show them." The human fleet turned as one. Engines flared. From the burning wreckage emerged a storm of retaliatory fire. Orbital rods tore through the hive's shields. Nuclear warheads detonated in cascading shockwaves. Raptor squadrons dived through clouds of acid, their metallic feathers glowing red-hot. But the humans weren't just attacking. They were learning. Every strike, every impact, every death was recorded, analyzed, and countered. Within minutes, their AI systems recalibrated, adapting to the hive's psychic waves. Rhea's console flickered back to life. "We've pierced its outer armor," she gasped. "There's a core chamber beneath the surface, massive energy readings." Mason's decision was immediate. "Then we go in." "Sir, that's suicide," one of the officers protested. He looked out the viewport at the churning biological mass, at the nightmare that had devoured half the galaxy. "No," he said softly. "That's humanity." The Fortress Sol plunged through the hive's outer membrane, followed by a vanguard of strike ships. Acid rain lashed the hull, tendrils whipped across shields. Inside, lights flickered as systems overloaded. But the beasts of Earth advanced without hesitation. Wolf mechs leapt from docking bays directly onto the hive's surface, claws digging into flesh-like armor. They burrowed inward, tearing through sinew and bone until they reached the pulsating tunnels beneath. Mason led the ground team himself. His armor was scarred, his weapons humming with overcharged energy. The air inside the hive was thick, hot, alive. Every wall pulsed with light, every surface oozed movement. "Keep moving," he ordered. "Target the neural conduits." They moved through the tunnels, cutting through swarms of harvester drones that poured from the walls. Rhea coordinated from orbit, feeding them intel through static-laden channels. "You're close to the core, General. Energy levels are spiking again." Mason gritted his teeth. "Then we're right on time." They breached the final chamber and froze. At its center floated the hive mind itself, a massive sphere of light and flesh, suspended by psychic energy. It pulsed with thought, with hunger. When it spoke, it wasn't sound, but words inside their skulls. "You are disease." Mason raised his weapon. "And you picked the wrong immune system to test." They opened fire. Plasma rounds tore into the core, splattering its surface with molten fluid. The hive retaliated with psychic tendrils that lashed through armor and bone alike. Men screamed, beasts roared, the walls themselves shook. Mason fired until his rifle overheated, then drew his blade, a monomolecular edge forged from the alloy of Earth's first orbital cannon. He plunged it deep into the core, driving it with a roar that echoed across both worlds and minds. The hive shrieked. Everywhere across the system, its ships convulsed, its drones faltered. The psychic storm imploded, collapsing inward. Rhea's sensors spiked red. "He's doing it," she whispered. "He's killing it." Mason tore his blade free as the core began to collapse. His comm crackled with Rhea's voice. "General, you have to get out. Now." He looked up at the roiling light. "Negative," he said. "If this thing lives, so does the war." He turned toward his squad. "Get them out, Major. That's an order." They hesitated. "Sir, go!" The chamber erupted in light. From orbit, Rhea watched as the hive core began to collapse inward, a brilliant implosion that swallowed the surrounding fleets in silence. The fortress soul barely escaped the shockwave, engines screaming as the void folded behind them. When the light finally died, nothing remained of the hive but drifting ash. Rhea stared at the empty screen. Her hand trembled as she whispered, "General?" Static, only static. The silence that followed was not victory. It was mourning. Humanity had slain a god, but at a cost only they could bear. The void after war was always the loudest silence. For weeks after the hive's destruction, the stars around the harvester frontier remained scarred and flickering, as if space itself still remembered the battle. Debris fields stretched across entire sectors, metal twisted into grotesque sculptures, fragments of both machine and living matter drifting together in unholy union. The fleet that had gone in, over 1,000 strong, limped home with less than half its ships. The harvesters were dead, the hive annihilated, but the cost had seared itself into the marrow of every survivor. Rhea Cade stood on the bridge of Fortress Sol, her reflection barely visible in the fractured glass of the viewport. She hadn't slept since the final battle. Her hands still bore the burns from the overload that nearly tore the ship apart, and every time she closed her eyes, she saw Mason Hale standing before the collapsing hive, weapon in hand, refusing to flee. She had ordered the retreat. She had heard his last words through the crackle of static, and now the silence of his absence felt heavier than gravity. The Council's fleets met them near the borders of the neutral zones. What remained of the Concord had gathered, desperate to celebrate the victory they had begged others to fight for. The Grand Chamber of Kareth Prime was alive again, lights blazing, banners unfurled, speeches already written. The moment Rhea and her surviving officers entered, the room erupted in sound. Cheers, applause, hollow words of praise. But Rhea's face did not move. Her soldiers stood behind her in silence, eyes hard, uniforms scorched and torn. They were not conquerors. They were ghosts wearing the armor of survival. The Chancellor, Vorlak, spread his crystalline arms wide. "Admiral Rhea Cade of Earth's fleet, on behalf of the Galactic Concord, I proclaim eternal gratitude. You have saved the galaxy from extinction." She stared at him for a long moment. The applause faded. "We didn't save the galaxy," she said. Her voice was low, sharp as flint. "We just made sure it didn't die screaming." The chamber fell silent. Vorlak tried to recover his composure. Surely you understand the magnitude of what your people have accomplished. My people, Rhea interrupted, were exiled by this council. You called us a threat. You erased our world from your records. Now that your enemy is Ash, you want to pretend that never happened. She stepped closer, her boots echoing against the marble floor. We lost millions in your war. Entire generations born in the dark to fight battles you were too civilized to face. You don't get to thank us, murmurs rippled through the delegates. Some looked away, others glared, offended, but none spoke. Rhea turned and left the chamber, her soldiers following in silence. Outside, the stars of Kareth Prime glimmered over the fleet dockyards. Hundreds of wounded ships floated in orbit, their hulls blackened, their scars glowing faintly in the artificial light. Mechanics, human and alien alike, worked side by side, patching hulls and sealing breaches. But even amid the bustle of repair, there was an unspoken dread. Every being who looked at the Earth fleet felt it. The reminder that the most dangerous monsters in the galaxy were not extinct. They were rebuilding. In the weeks that followed, the Council tried to formalize an alliance. Treaties, compensations, joint research, offers poured in from every corner of the galaxy. Humanity ignored most of them. Their fleet returned to Sol, back behind the silence that had hidden them for centuries. Earth itself was different now. The surface glowed with the scars of centuries of evolution and war. Megacities stood beside wastelands where the old world had burned. Oceans were filled with living machines. Forests teemed with metallic predators. The beasts of Earth had become part of its soul, as vital to the planet as oxygen. And now, for the first time in generations, the people of Earth looked to the stars not as enemies, but as witnesses. Rhea stood in the command tower overlooking the Arctic defense ring. The sky above was alive with auroras, their green light shimmering against the metallic horizon. The air carried the hum of energy grids and drone patrols. Mason Hale's insignia hung on her chest, a simple scarred emblem of the First Recon, now worn by every soldier in the fleet. He had died destroying the Hive, or so the reports said. But Rhea knew better. The Hive's psychic field had burned through every sensor. There was no body, no confirmation, just silence, and humans didn't die in silence. They endured it. Fleet reports are stable, her aide said behind her. Repairs at 80%. Aegis production lines are active again. Good, Rhea said softly. Keep them running? The aide hesitated. Ma'am, the Council's requesting another meeting. They say remnants of the Hive have been detected near the Perseus Rift. Rhea's eyes narrowed. Of course they have. She turned back to the window. Tell them we'll investigate. Alone. Far from Sol, beyond the edge of mapped space, something stirred in the dark. The Hive's death had not been total. Deep within the ruined shell of its corpse world, fragments of consciousness clung to survival. Neural strands reknit themselves in silence, drawing energy from the scattered debris. It remembered pain, it remembered fear, and it remembered the one who had caused it. It remembered the human. Mason Hale's last moments had not been consumed by death, but by fusion. When the Hive's core collapsed, it had reached for his mind, to consume him, to learn the thing it feared most. But humans were not prey. Hale's consciousness, driven by instinct, will, and rage, fought back. And somewhere between the explosion of matter and thought, something impossible happened. The Hive had taken a part of him, but he had taken more of it. Now, deep in the cold dark, something woke. A flicker of light in the void. A human voice whispering in the storm. Rhea dreamed of fire that night. She saw the Hive collapsing again, the core screaming and Mason's silhouette dissolving into the light. She woke in a sweat, alarms blaring through the command deck. Her comm crackled to life. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. From beyond the rift. Rhea froze. Origin? Unclear. It's human-coded. But the encryption is old. Very old. Her heart pounded. Put it through. Static filled the room, followed by a voice she hadn't heard since that day in the Hive. Rhea, it whispered. She stumbled forward. Mason? The signal wavered, the voice fractured by interference. Not dead. Not alive. The hive isn't gone. It's changing. It's learning. Then silence. Rhea stood there for a long moment, her pulse thundering. Around her, the command staff exchanged uneasy glances. "Trace it," she ordered. "I want a jump prepared in 10 minutes. We're going after him." The aide hesitated. "Ma'am, the council will protest." "I don't care what they protest," she snapped. "We finish what we started." 3 days later, the fleet entered the Perseus Rift. The stars here were dim, the light bent by the gravity of ancient black holes. Radiation storms flared across the void. Somewhere out there, Mason's signal pulsed faintly, guiding them deeper into the dark. What they found wasn't a hive. It was a graveyard. Thousands of harvester husks drifted in silence, their bodies fused together into an immense ring that encircled a dead star. But within that ring pulsed something faint. Energy signatures unlike any they had ever seen. As the fleet approached, Rhea's sensors lit up. "It's not debris," she said slowly. "It's growing." Tendrils of living metal began to stir among the wreckage. The remnants of the hive were reforming, but this time something was different. The structures were straighter, sharper, almost geometric. "Human." "General Mason Hale," said a voice through the comms. His voice, calm and resonant, layered with something else beneath it. "You came." Rhea's throat went dry. "Mason, what happened to you?" "I became what they feared," the voice said. "The hive's consciousness couldn't consume me. I consumed it instead. I've seen what's coming, Rhea. The harvesters were only a beginning." "What do you mean?" she whispered. "The hive wasn't acting alone. Something older is stirring beyond the galactic rim." The harvesters were scouts. "They called it the Reclamation." Static flared again, then the voice hardened. "You need to prepare, Rhea. Earth has to change again. The galaxy isn't ready for what's next, but we might be." Then the signal cut. The bridge was silent. Around her, the crew stared at the dead channel as if it might come alive again. Rhea closed her eyes. She knew what had to come next. "Set course for Sol," she ordered. "We're going home." As the fleet turned, the stars outside flickered once more. The galaxy thought it had seen the worst humanity could offer. It hadn't yet seen what humanity could become. And deep in the darkness of the rift, where human and hive had become one, Mason Hale opened his eyes. The void reflected in them like fire. The galaxy had declared his kind too dangerous once. Now it would remember why. The skies above Earth burned gold when the fleet returned. Great streaks of plasma from re-entry marked the horizon as thousands of ships descended in silence. There were no parades, no celebration this time. Only the grim hum of engines and the weight of knowing what waited beyond the edge of the stars. Admiral Rhea Cade stood at the edge of the command spire overlooking the Atlantic defense ring, her reflection cast against the black water below. Humanity had been called dangerous once, but now that word felt like an understatement. They were changing again, faster, harder, sharper, becoming something the rest of the galaxy would never understand. Mason Hale's last transmission replayed in her mind every hour. The hive wasn't gone. It had evolved, merging with him. What he'd said about the reclamation gnawed at her. Something older than the hive, something vast enough to send Deathworlders as scouts. She'd seen war, extinction, entire species wiped out, but nothing about Hale's voice had sounded afraid. It had sounded ready. That terrified her more than anything. Earth's sky was no longer blue. From orbit, it shimmered with the defense grid. A lattice of drones, satellites, and automated Aegis platforms that ringed the planet like a crown. Below, the megacities burned with activity, factories working non-stop to rebuild the fleet. New ships were already being forged. Not from alloy and steel alone, but from organic and synthetic compounds grown in orbiting cradles. Living metal. It pulsed faintly, almost breathing. The fusion of human design and remnants of the hives. Biotechnology, Rhea's engineers called it. Evolution. The council called it madness. Humanity called it preparation. When the council's delegation arrived, they were not greeted with the usual ceremony. No escort, no trumpets. Only silence. They stood awkwardly at the base of the tower, dwarfed by the colossal walls of the Sol citadel. Chancellor Vorlak, once proud and eloquent, now seemed smaller beneath the cold gaze of Earth's soldiers. His crystalline form flickered as he entered the chamber where Rhea waited. "Admiral Cade," he began, voice uncertain. "We received your transmission. This reclamation. You're certain it exists?" Rhea turned slowly. "Mason Hale doesn't lie. If he says something's coming, it's coming. But what could be older than the Hive?" The Chancellor pressed. "They were the apex predators of the spiral arm." "They were slaves," Rhea replied flatly. "And the ones who made them are still out there." The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. Rhea could almost hear their fears scratching beneath their polished manners. "We propose a united front," Vorlak said at last. "Our fleets combined, human, Tyrell, Vokathi, all species standing as one. Together we can—" Rhea's laugh cut through him like a blade. "Together? You mean the same council that exiled us? The same alliance that called us too violent to exist? You wouldn't stand beside us when the Hive burned your worlds, and now you want to share our shield?" She stepped closer until the alien's shimmering body reflected her eyes. "You've had peace for too long, Chancellor. You forgot what survival costs." Vorlak's tone turned desperate. "We cannot fight what we cannot understand." "That's the difference between us," she said. "You seek understanding. We seek victory." That night, Rhea walked the halls of the Citadel alone. She paused before a memorial, rows of names carved into black metal, stretching up the wall until they vanished into shadow. Hale's name was there, etched in silence. She touched it with her gloved hand. "You better be alive out there, Mason," she whispered, "because I'm not done fighting." Across the galaxy, the Perseus Rift flared with unnatural light. What had once been a graveyard was now a fortress. The fragments of the Hive had coalesced into a structure the size of a small moon, part flesh, part metal, part will. And at its heart, Mason Hale stood at the edge of a vast chamber, surrounded by tendrils of living circuitry. The Hive whispered constantly around him, a symphony of minds woven into one. But his voice, his humanity, was still the loudest in that storm. He had learned to control it. The Hive had once been a swarm of instinct, driven by hunger. But now, through him, it thought. It reasoned. It remembered. He had turned its chaos into an army of purpose. And in the endless dark beyond the rift, he had found something vast, something ancient, sleeping. A network of consciousness so immense it stretched across galaxies. It was not the Hive's creator. It was the Hive's god. He had seen its eyes open. It had no shape, no body, just intent. A will older than stars. The reclamation. It existed to reset creation, to wipe the galaxy clean whenever life grew defiant. And now it had turned its attention toward the Milky Way. Hale had seen its fleets stirring in the void, billions of entities that made the harvesters look primitive. He had one thought left as he watched it rise from the abyss. They'll need monsters to fight this. He reached out through the void. Rhea felt the signal like a pulse under her skin. She stood on the bridge of Fortress Sol when the stars above Earth dimmed for a moment, as though something vast had blinked in the dark. The comms flared alive, filling the room with static that burned like fire. A voice came through, fractured but unmistakable. "Rhea, it's me." She froze. "Mason? You need to move fast," his voice rasped, echoing with mechanical undertones. "The reclamation is real. It's moving through intergalactic space. You have months, maybe less." Her chest tightened. "You're alive." "Alive enough," he said. "Listen carefully. You can't win this with your current fleet. You'll need us." "Us?" "The Hive," he said. "What's left of it? I control it now. We've changed. I can help you. But the Council will never trust me. You'll have to decide if you do." Static swallowed his voice, but the last words burned through the interference like a promise. "We're coming home." When the Hive fleet appeared at the edge of Sol, the stars went dark again. Thousands of organic ships glided silently into orbit, each one a fusion of bone, steel, and something alive. The Council panicked, broadcasting demands and threats, but the humans said nothing. They just watched as the ships formed a ring around Earth and waited. Then, through the comms, Mason Hale's voice filled every channel across the system. "I am Mason Hale of Earth. The Hive is no longer your enemy. We are what comes next. The reclamation will arrive soon, and if you want to live, you will fight beside us." The galaxy trembled. Some called it blasphemy. Others called it destiny. Rhea just called it inevitable. Earth became a forge world overnight. Every satellite, every shipyard, every orbital platform was repurposed. The fusion of Hive and human design birthed weapons the galaxy had never dreamed of. Guns that fired living plasma, armor that regenerated, drones with instincts. For the first time in history, the Hive and humanity moved as one. The Council's fleets joined them reluctantly. But when the first reclamation vanguard entered the galactic rim, a wave of black, angular ships blotting out stars, all doubts burned away. The combined armada met them above the shattered remains of the Hive's corpse world. Humanity stood at the center, Rhea and Mason commanding together. She from Fortress Sol, he from within the living network of the Hive itself. The battle lasted 9 days. Space burned. Worlds died. Stars collapsed under the fury of weapons that defied physics. Human pilots screamed war cries through static, and the Hive roared alongside them. For the first time, the galaxy fought not for peace, not for survival, but for defiance. When the final wave broke, the Reclamation's central mind reached out across the void. It touched Mason's consciousness, trying to consume him. But he smiled. "You don't understand humanity," he whispered into the dark. "We don't stop. We don't submit. We adapt." He unleashed the Hive's core, merging human will with the swarm's infinite network. The explosion rippled through dimensions, burning the Reclamation's fleet out of existence. When it was over, the galaxy was silent again. Rhea watched the last of the Reclamation ships burn into ash. Her comms were dead. Mason's signal was gone. Again. She stood there for a long time, staring at the dark between the stars. Then, faintly, a pulse echoed through the void. One heartbeat, distant but human. Earth had been called dangerous once. The Council had begged for mercy. Now they prayed that humanity would never fall silent again. Because silence, they had learned, was what came just before the monsters woke. And this time, the monsters wore human faces.